My name's Marcus Bleasdale. I'm a photojournalist. I live in Oslo and I have an exhibition on the LRA at Fotografiska. Photography for me is a tool. I try to and I like to use photography in order to educate and inform and influence political policy, to try to change the way certain conflicts are going on in the world. So what I try to do with photography is use it more as an activist. I work a lot with organizations like Human Rights Watch to try to use their collaborative skills as lawyers, as legal brains within the areas of conflict, and my kind of visual approach to the world, and collectively we try to collaborate to try to make each of our messages stronger in order to make effective change. The reason we see these pictures on the walls is because inside I'm angry that it's happening, and I think I'm trying to project that anger onto the people that see them, and I hope they get angry too. And I hope they see these images and want to make it stop. I think pictures can scare people away and repulse people because what they're showing is either dramatic or revolting or too horrific for people to engage. What I try to do is draw people in through beauty, in a way, trying to make the pictures, yes, important, yes, haunting, a little dark, maybe, but I also want them to be beautiful so that the people can be drawn into them and learn, because if they don't learn, then they can't leave this room with an understanding of what's going on. And if they do that, then I've failed. If they come here and are drawn into these individual images because they're in some form beautiful, then I've succeeded, because they've gone away with more than they came in here with. The decision to shoot black and white or colour, for me, depends really on the situation. Black and white photography allows me to strip away all the extra material, all the reds and the greens and the very confusing mixed up colours, of which in Central Africa there are quite a lot of confusing colours, and sometimes that becomes what the picture is. And what I want people to concentrate on is more the relationship and the emotion within the frame, the message that the frame is trying to project. And sometimes that colour can detract from that message. But increasingly, I've started to shoot in colour, but maybe I'm shooting in colour using the same ideas that I have when I'm shooting black and white, and a lot of these images here are very much about the shadows, very much about the highlights. So you kind of strip away the color as the way I'm shooting it, even though they are in color. But there are also decisions as a photographer where you see color and you see that it adds something to the frame. And so there's one image that I took with a lady who has been through horrific experience. The LRA have mutilated her. They've cut off her lips. And that's an image which is very difficult to show. But she was wearing this very beautiful orange, almost red, glary blouse. And she was very proud of the way she looked, and she was full of dignity. And what I wanted to do was represent that dignity, and I felt that her clothing and the colors that she was wearing represented that dignity. And so I tried to use that as well in the frame. And that's an example of where color can really add to the message and reinforce the message. There's one amazing woman I met in Central African Republic. She's called Valentine, and she was abducted by Joseph Kony's men when she was 13, and she spent just under a year as a sex slave in the LRA. That's essentially what, as a young girl, when you're abducted, that's what you're abducted for. The young children, the young boys go and become soldiers, and the young girls are primed to be wives of commanders. And Valentine was almost promised to Joseph Kony. She was placed in his group of women that he was married to, married being a rather wide context of that word. And she was raped by him, and she was forced to cook and live with him for a period of 7 months. And she was accused by Kony's other wives and of Kony's surrounding entourage of trying to kill him through sorcery when she burnt some of his food in the evening one day. And she was going to be tried the next day for sorcery, and if she was found guilty, she would have been killed. So she, on a raid in a local village, when they went to get some food and abduct more people, she took her opportunity and ran into the bush to escape. She threw off all of her clothes and stayed for several days naked in the bush, trying to avoid being detected by the LRA, who were out there searching for her all the time. And she, after several days of hiding naked in the bush, the LRA left, and she walked out and found a young child who had been left by his mother, 2-year-old child who had been left by his mother, as the mother had been abducted by the LRA and the child had been abandoned in this village. And she picked up that child and she walked many kilometers to a village where she found shelter and help. And she's now back with her family in the Central African Republic. But a pretty amazing lady. Fotografiska is, I think, such a fantastic asset. I think as the Swedish population are very lucky to have it so close and have such a celebration of eclectic work. And I think that's one of the strengths of having work like this next to Antique Corbière. Now, for example, you have all of these very different artists in this space, and some people may come in here to enjoy fashion photography. They may come in here to enjoy portraiture. They may come in here to enjoy art photography or architectural photography and stumble on this story of the LRA. And that's a real strength, I think, and that's where, as a photographer, you start to sometimes be a little, you question sometimes publishing in magazines like the New York Times or the Guardian, because you feel like you're preaching to the converted. Let's face it, no one thinks that abducting children and forcing them into being a child soldier or a sex slave is a good thing. And so no one wants this to happen. But what I'm trying to do, hopefully, is to make more people aware. And maybe someone who is coming in to appreciate architectural photography doesn't know about the LRA, they'll stumble on this and they'll learn something and walk out more informed, hopefully.